In the desolate heart of a forgotten frontier, where dreams withered under an unforgiving sun, a train's final anguished screech pierced the silence before it retreated, swallowed by the dust it had stirred. Abigail Harper stood alone on the splintered platform, her gloved hand gripping the worn handle of a modest suitcase. The sun blazed without mercy, bleaching the bones of the landscape and fraying her nerves. Around her, nothing moved. No welcoming committee, no eager suitor. Only the mournful whistle of a dry wind weaving through the skeletal remains of abandoned buildings. Willow Creek, she'd been promised, was a small but thriving settlement. Yet what sprawled before her was a graveyard masquerading as a town. She stepped off the platform, her boots crunching against sun-scorched gravel. The silence pressed against her like a suffocating cloak, impossible to shed. Her bonnet fluttered in the breeze, and she clutched it tightly as she surveyed the place meant to be her salvation. Wooden storefronts sagged inward, like weary souls leaning on each other for support. Shutters hung by a single hinge, creaking in defeat. A rusted sign above a saloon groaned lazily, its faded letters spelling Golden Beacon with Poverel missing. No laughter echoed, no horses snorted, no chimney smoke curled seaward. Just the relentless sun, the wind, and a haunting sense that the world had ended without bothering to inform her. Abigail ventured onto the main street, her pulse quickening with each step. She was no stranger to hardship. Boston had hardened her. 2 years nursing a dying sister, then cast out from her governess post when the child passed and the father remarried within weeks. She'd left with little but her dignity, clutching letters from a stranger whose words carried a quiet strength, like a lighthouse in a storm. Samuel, the blacksmith, had signed them. His letters spoke of the forge's glow in winter, the rhythm of hammers, and how fire could tame even the stubbornest iron. He'd written of building a life together. But here, no fire burned. Only the echo of her boots and the oppressive buzz of heat. She moved with resolve, though doubt gnawed at her. Several doors stood unlocked. She entered what was once the general store, where shelves still held goods, dried beans, tins of peaches, bolts of dusty cloth, all frozen in time, as if the townsfolk had stepped out momentarily and never returned. A spider descended on a silken thread, and she flinched, stumbling against a counter strewn with unopened mail. Curiosity tugged at her, and she sifted through the letters, most months or years old. One bore Samuel's name. Her fingers hovered, tempted to open it, but she stopped. It felt like trespassing. By dusk she found the chapel, plain and weathered but sought it. Inside, pews were coated in fine dust, yet the altar stood pristine, a beam of fading sunlight glinting on its simple cross. She lit a candle from her travel kit and sat, fingers clasped, though no prayers came. Fear seeped in, cold and insidious, like water under a door. What if Samuel was dead? What if plague, poverty, or violence had hollowed out this town, and no one had thought to warn her? What kind of fool did that make her? She blinked back tears refusing to break. Boston hadn't shattered her. This wouldn't either. Sleep eluded her. She sat awake long after the candle sputtered out, her back against a pew, listening to the wind scrape the chapel's walls. Then came a sound that wasn't the wind. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate. She rose, muscles taut, torn between calling out and hiding. The door groaned open, admitting a silhouette framed by the dying sun. A man stepped forward, tall and broad-shouldered, his clothes darkened with soot. A leather apron slung low on his hips. A hammer hung at his belt, catching the fading light. His black hair was streaked with gray, his beard trimmed close. His eyes, dark and unreadable, held neither joy nor surprise. "You came," he said, his voice low and rough as gravel. Abigail stared, torn between relief and anger. "You're Samuel?" He nodded slowly. "I am." She took a cautious step forward. I've been here all day. I didn't know if you were alive." Samuel's gaze drifted past her, as if chasing shadows in the chapel. "Didn't think you'd come. Not after all this time. You stopped writing." Her voice sharpened. "You think that was your choice to make for me?" "No," he said, exhaling heavily. "But when the town turned to dust, I didn't have much left but silence." They stood inches apart, the air between them crackling with unspoken words. He smelled of iron and smoke, like a man who'd lingered too long in flames. "I should leave," she said, unsure if it was truth or armor. "You could," he replied softly. "But there's no train for 2 days, and the desert's no place to wander alone." Their eyes locked, wordless. Then Abigail stepped aside, gesturing to a pew. "Sit if you want." I lit a candle, but it's gone out. Samuel entered, his boots thudding against the floor. He sat, hands on his knees, staring at the altar. After a pause, he asked, "Do you believe in second chances?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she said, "That depends. Are you offering one, or asking for one?" He glanced at her, his eyes softening briefly. "Maybe both." The silence returned, but it was different. Not heavy, not accusing. Abigail exhaled, just once. Tomorrow would bring harder questions. But tonight, for the first time in years, she wasn't entirely alone. For now, that sufficed. The forge pulsed with life before she saw it. An unseen heartbeat in the earth, a faint warmth curling around the chapel as dawn crept into Willow Creek. Abigail stepped into the dusty street, drawn by the glow and the scent of coal and metal, sharp as memory. It led her to a low, sturdy building at the town's edge, its chimney coughing thin black smoke into the pale sky. Inside, Samuel worked, his hammer striking with a steady, relentless rhythm, like a pulse. Sparks flew as iron met anvil, and Abigail watched from the doorway, captivated. His arms moved with practiced grace, sleeves rolled back to reveal skin scarred by old burns and soot. There was something primal about him, a man forged from earth and fire, who spoke more through his hands than his voice. He didn't look up when he said, "You don't seem the type to wait for an invitation." She stepped inside. "I wasn't sure I was welcome. You wouldn't be wrong to wonder." He set the hammer down and met her gaze. "You staying?" "I don't know yet." She crossed her arms. "Depends on how much truth I get today." Samuel wiped his hands on a rag, slow and deliberate. "Truth's heavier than it looks, Abigail." "I can carry it." He studied her, then nodded toward a bench near the bellows. She sat, keeping her skirts clear of the sooty floor. He poured water into a tin cup and handed it to her. "This town had 200 souls once, miners, families. We weren't grand, but we had music, a schoolhouse, fresh bread." "What happened?" "Bad luck," he said, and she nearly scoffed. But his face had hardened. "One winter, the mine collapsed. Took 14 men in a night. Then fever came." She sipped the water, her throat dry. "Plague?" "Something like it. No doctor could name it. Folks left faster than they arrived. By spring, it was me and my brother. Then just me." Abigail looked down. "And you kept writing letters, even then?" "No." His voice was firm. "I stopped when it went quiet. But I didn't burn your letters. I read them over and over." There was pain in his words, not romantic, not wistful, but raw, as if her letters had been a lifeline, not a love story. She spoke carefully. "You could have written to say, 'Don't come.'" "I should have." He leaned against the anvil, voice rough. "But I didn't think you'd still be out there. Didn't think you'd make the trip." "You asked me to," she said, "and I believed you." Samuel looked away. "Then I'm more of a coward than I thought." Silence settled, broken only by the forge's soft crackle. Abigail had expected tears, apologies, or a proposal, but now Face to face with his broken world, her anger felt fragile. She'd come to escape a life of being unseen, discarded. He hadn't fully deceived her. He'd just it. "What now?" she asked. He shrugged. "Keep the forge running. Sell to ranchers passing through. Start again, Alos. I'm used to it." She stared at him. "That's not living." His smile was hollow. "Sometimes surviving's all there is." A sound interrupted. Distant hooves, muffled steps. Samuel froze, eyes narrowing. He grabbed his hammer instinctively and moved to the door. "Wait," Abigail whispered, rising. Outside a figure appeared. A lanky, unshaven man with a rifle slung over his shoulder and a predatory glint in his eyes. He didn't look friendly. "Afternoon," the man called, stepping into the clearing. "Didn't expect anyone alive out here." "Keep walking," Samuel said evenly. The man chuckled, eyeing Abigail. "Didn't know you had company." Samuel stepped in front of her. "She's none of your business." The stranger advanced. "Got food? Water? I'm just looking to trade." "We've got nothing for you," Samuel said, unyielding. The air thickened, the moment teetering. Abigail's heart pounded, but she stayed silent, watching. The man hesitated, smirked, tipped his hat, and retreated. When he was gone, Samuel exhaled. "Third one this month. Carrion circling." Abigail's tension eased, replaced by a deeper ache. Not fear for herself, but for this crumbling place and the man holding it together with fire and grit. "You live like this?" she asked. He didn't answer, just stared where the stranger had vanished. "You didn't come for a ghost town. I get it. You want to go? I won't stop you." She stepped closer. "Maybe I didn't come for the town. Maybe I came for what you promised. And maybe I still see it in you." Samuel turned, brow furrowed. "Even now, you're here. That counts." He looked at her, the firelight flickering in his eyes. "I don't know if I can offer much." "Then offer what you can." The forge crackled. The desert wind shifted, and something softened in his stance. "Stay for supper," he said. "Just beans, but there is salt." She smiled faintly. "That's a start." Inside the forge they sat near the fire as the sky bled red. He spoke of dreaming of a shop in Santa Fe. She told him of her sister, how grief had reshaped her heart. They didn't touch, but their words did. When night fell, Abigail stepped into the street, gazing at the stars. Samuel stood in the doorway, a silhouette against the forge's glow. "You never answered," he said. "Are you staying?" She turned, voice clear. "I think I will." For the first time, Samuel's smile was real, not hollow, a spark of something new. The wind carried no ghosts that night, only the clang of a hammer and the sound of something beginning. Morning light slanted through the boarding house's warped windows, casting golden lines across the floor, where Abigail say, mending a torn hem with practiced stitches. Outside, the forge sang its steel song into the desert sky. The sound no longer startled her. It was a heartbeat, proof that Willow Creek still lived. 4 days had passed since she chose to stay. 4 days of cautious routines, sweeping the chapel's dust, cooking simple meals in a half-ruined kitchen, and building a fragile language with Samuel beyond mere survival. Yet beneath their quiet gestures and shared silence, unresolved truths lingered, heavy with unspoken grief. She glanced toward the forge, where Samuel worked shirtless under the sun, sweat gleaming on his scarred skin, arms flexing as he shaped metal with a master's precision. She studied him, not with desire, but with curiosity. A man who'd outlasted everything but himself. Later, she brought him water. He took it with a quiet thanks, drinking deeply. "You keep so much locked away," she said, watching his face shift. He set the cup down, squinting toward the hills. Only the parts that'd break loose and ruin everything. She waited. Finally, he spoke. There was someone before you. Not a wife, not quite. Her name was Clara. She was meant to marry my brother. But the fever took him, and we held on like driftwood. It wasn't love, just drowning together. She left last spring. Said she needed a place that didn't taste like ash. I didn't blame her. I stayed, kept hammering, waiting for something to change. And now? Abigail asked, her voice soft as the wind. Now I'm wondering if letting go of the ghosts is the hardest fire I've ever faced. She met his gaze, one survivor recognizing another. That night, the stillness felt different. After dinner, they sat by the dying forge, stars piercing the sky like holes in black silk. Samuel passed her a tin of warm cider, a small but intimate gesture. She took it, the heat warming her hands. What did you want? He asked. When you answered my letter. The question caught her off guard. She stared into the embers. Not escape. People think that's why women leave. But I wanted to matter. To someone. To somewhere. You do, he said without hesitation. You already do. The words settled into her chest, filling an empty space. Then came the sound again, hoofbeats, fast and close. They stood, instincts sharp. A rider galloped into view, pulling hard on the reins, dust billowing in his wake. He dismounted and ran forward. Help! Robbers, maybe worse. They're following me. Samuel pulled Abigail behind him, hand on his hammer. Where? 5 miles out, the man gasped. I broke away, but they're close, hummed. They took my brother's wagon. I don't know if he's alive. Abigail's heart ceased. The forge felt fragile, like a dream built too high. Samuel turned to her. Stay inside, lock the doors. She grabbed his arm. You can't face them alone. He stared, jaw tight. I've done worse, but not with something to lose. The rider looked between them, confused. Please, I need help. Samuel glanced at the dust-bleeding sky and dissuaded. We'll set a trap. There's a bottleneck past the ridge, an old mining road. If they ride through, we can slow them. Abigail spoke before doubt could stop her. Then I'm coming. No, he snapped. I've loaded a rifle. I've stood by deathbeds and held ground while men wept. Don't tell me what I can't do. His eyes met hers, raw and vulnerable. Then stay close. They rode out under a bruised scaumue, the desert swallowing them. As they reached the ridge, Abigail had never shot at anything alive, but she gripped the rifle like she'd always known it. The wind tugged her dress, sagebrush and heat rising around her. They waited, Thomas laying iron caltrops across the narrow trail. His hand brushed hers once, not a caress, just connection. The rider pointed into the darkening horizon. There, shapes emerged, 3, then 4, armed, laughing, careless. Then chaos erupted. A horse screamed, hitting the caltrops. A rider fell. Gunshots shattered the silence. Samuel fired, reloading with impossible speed. Abigail knelt, aimed, breathed as he had taught her, and pulled the trigger. One man fell, he saw another fled, then silence, the kind that rings after thunder. Samuel approached the last rider, wounded but alive, groaning under his horse. You'll ride out, he growled. Tell the others this town's not dead. Come back, and there'll be no warning. The man didn't argue. By the time they returned, the forge's fire had dimmed, but something burned brighter in Abigail's chest. Not fear, not triumph, but belonging. Samuel looked at her, both dusted in smoke and grit. You all right? She nodded, breath shaky. Are you? He didn't answer. He reached for her hand. This time she let him take it. This time he didn't let go. The days that followed didn't return to stillness. Willow Creek, once a ghost town of whispers, breathed anew. The quiet lingered, but beneath it pulsed movement, purpose. Abigail rose before dawn, sleeves rolled, waist tied with old rope, tending chores born of stubborn hope. She cleared doughs from the chapel, patched the boarding house roof, and helped Samuel rehang the forge's faded sign, Harper Ironworks, weathered but proud. No one spoke of marriage, but its shape lingered. In tin cups passed without asking, in meals shared in comfortable silence. It was a courtship of ash and defiance. The rider, Caleb, stayed a few days to rest his horse and bury his brother's remains. His presence made the town feel less forsaken. His crude, quick stories and sharp wit softened their grim routine. One night, over beans and weak coffee, he asked Samuel, "Think this place could live again?" Samuel glanced at Abigail. "It already is." She didn't smile, but warmth lingered in her chest. The next morning brought a biting wind, bending mesquite and driving sand through every crack. Abigail stood in the chapel doorway, watching the ski turn pewter. Her gut twisted with an unnameable feeling. Samuel hammered with urgency at the forge. She crossed the street, squinting against the grit. "We should close up." He didn't stop. "Nearly done." She touched his arm. "It can wait." He paused, sweat and soot streaking his face. "Storm's coming." "Let's board the windows." The storm was wind, merciless and loud, rattling the past loose. Inside the chapel, Abigail lit a lantern. Samuel joined her, arms full of blankets, voice raised over the howl. "Whole town used to huddle here during storms. Sang hymns, told stories." She smiled faintly. "I can hum off key." He chuckled and sat beside her. The lantern flickered, shadows dancing. "What if they don't come?" she asked. "What if we're the last to believe this place matters?" He was quiet, then said, "Let's matter enough for all of them." They slept leaning against each other, backs to the wind. When the storm passed, Willow Creek was scarred but standing. A few shutters lost, a broken trough. Nothing they couldn't mend. The world had tried to erase the town again and failed. The next week brought a wagon, sun-bleached and creaking, carrying a family of 5 with weary eyes and a limping horse. Abigail spotted them from the chapel steps and called for Samuel. He came, rifle in hand, then slowed when the driver tipped his hat. "Got water?" "More than that," Samuel said, offering his hand. "Looking to settle?" The man glanced at his wife and children. "Somewhere that ain't dead. You've come to the right place." By sunset they had neighbors. Abigail stretched the last dried beans into stew with wild onions and moye. The children laughed, exploring empty buildings. Caleb taught the eldest to hitch a wagon. Samuel stood taller, not in height, but in presence, like a man remembering pride. Across the firelight, his gaze met Abigail's. Later he approached her, deliberate. "One question." She raised an eyebrow. He pulled a small bundle from his coat, a ring, simple and worn, wrapped in a handkerchief. "My mother's." She said it held more promise than gold. Abigail touched it gently. "You sure?" "I was sure the day you stepped off that train. Took me this long to find the words." Tears pricked her eyes, not from sorrow, but from the impossible rightness of the moment. "You've got them now," she whispered. "Say them. Stay. Not because you have to. Not because the world forgot this place, but because we can build something better together." Yes. No cheers followed, no music. Just the soft wind, watching. In the weeks that followed, more wagons arrived. A baker from Abilene, a widow with goats and a prayer. Hammers and laughter returned to Willow Creek, not as echoes, but as truth. The forge glowed anew. Abigail turned the chapel into a gathering hall, lighting lanterns every Sunday to tell stories, some true, some borrowed, all rooted in fire and survival. Each time, she looked at the growing crowd and swore. Once, she'd come seeking something. Now others came for the same reason, and she was there to meet them.